In this video, we are going to take our corridor design surface and we're going to create some sample lines in order to show cross sections and eventually get some mass haul diagrams and volumes. So we have our alignment, we have a profile, we have a corridor defined. Now we can create sections, which is basically, if you want to think about it this way, a profile rotated 90 degrees perpendicular across the road. So we'll be creating a whole bunch of cross sections down the length of this highway in order to show what, say, every 50 meters looks like in a cross section. And these do get sent out to the contractor so they can accurately figure out where to put dirt and lay things out and whatnot. So we have all the bits and pieces now, we can make our sections. So we can do it through the ribbon under sample lines, or we can go up through sections, create sample lines. Now Civil 3D asks you to select an alignment or press enter to select it from a list. We do have an alignment here, however, if you have multiple alignments or there's a lot of overlapping line work, it's probably just easier to hit enter. So I'm going to hit enter and select highway and go OK. Up pops our create sample line group. Now if you want to name these sample lines highway, if you have multiple different roads, name them what they are. You can make as many sample line groups as you want. And you can modify them and edit them and again have as many as you want. The next thing we're going to look at is a sample line style. So what style do we want? What's label style do we want? Do we want section numbers or sections and stations? It all depends on what you need to show. So I'm just going to choose sections and stations. And then Civil 3 says select the data sources to sample. Now this will look at your corridor. This will look at all the surfaces that are in your drawing. And if you leave everything selected, it's going to sample absolutely everything. But we don't really need to sample. Let's turn a bunch of stuff off. So there's 50th Avenue. That's the corridor itself. I'll leave that on. We can turn it off after. I'm going to turn off the base surface and the bottom of asphalt. So I want to sample the existing ground and the road top just to see where the top and the bottom are. And leaving the corridor on, it should show us in the section where the corridor itself is. So I'm going to hit OK. And inside of Civil 3D, we get the little pop-up now. So we have a specify station along baseline. So we can go through and specify every single station manually if we want, and again turn those snaps off and you won't lag. As soon as those snaps are turned on, it tries to snap to everything. Or we can go through the dialog box and take a look at some of the options. Now this drop down button here, we can create samples by a range of stations. This will do it all automatically for us, so we don't have to do it manually. Taking a look at some of the options, station range from the alignment start. Sure, we want to label it from the start to the end. The widths, left swath width and right swath width. Now we got to picture this as we're driving down the highway. So where's our 0 and where's the 7,000? If we're driving this way, our right hand side is over here and our left hand side is over here. Now what these swath widths are is how wide left and right are these sample lines going to sample. Now I have these set for 60 meters. However, 60 meters might not be enough. And if we don't get all of the information to the left and the right, we're not going to get an accurate volume because some of that material will be discounted because the sections can't see it. So I'm going to look in Civil 3D on the left hand side and try and figure out which is my widest part of my highway. It's always okay to have these sample lines wider than the road, but having them skinnier than the road is not good. So that's 60 meters there. That's a pretty wide part. We'll take a look down here, and I'm just measuring roughly from the center of the road to the offset. So we'll go 65 meters on the left, and then 65 meters on the right. Or sorry, we'll figure out what the right is. So we'll check down here. That's about 50 meters. Generally, they're usually the same distance, however, not always. That's 50 meters again. And this is probably going to be our largest one. So we'll do 65 there as well. So we've done 65 on the left and 65 on the right. Now, do we want to sample at increments or do we want to sample something else? And then what do we want to, increments relative the absolute station or the start station range? And then we have some options. We'll increment along tangents every 50 meters, curves and spirals every 50 meters. It's going to place a sample line for us. And then additional controls. Do we want to have a section at the very beginning and at the very end? And do we want any at the horizontal geometry points or super elevation critical points? You can go true or false. It's really up to you. So I'm going to hit OK now and give Civil 3D a minute to create all these sample lines. If we remember, this is a 7-kilometer long road and we're creating a sample line every 50 meters. So we're going to get approximately 140 sample lines. So I'm going to hit escape now that those sample lines are done. And we're going to take a look along the alignment and make sure we have indeed sampled them wide enough. And it looks like we have. All right, now that we have all our sample lines there, if we look under alignments drop down, our center line alignments, and we expand highway, we now have information under sample line groups or sample line highway. So we can click on sample lines and see all the sample lines we have from 1 to 159. And we can look under sections and see what sections are being sampled. So we told those three surfaces, or sorry, the two surfaces and the corridor itself to be sampled. Now, if we look at some of this information, sample line highway, we can right click on that and go properties. We'll bring up the sample line group properties for our highway. We can look under sample lines and see all of the sample lines there, the station, what layer they're on, what style they're using, and the left and right offset. So if we have to increase this offset, we can go ahead and do that. We can come in here and type 70 if we need, or we can type 30. And then we can look at the group labels and see what labels that the sample line is using. If we look under sections, these are the sources that are being sampled. If we add a new surface at a later date or we need to modify this, we can click on sample more sources, select the ones we want and add them in. Under section views, if we have section views, they'll appear in here as well. And we can add a material list. So this can help us get asphalt volumes and sub-base volumes and gravel volumes. We could add materials and compute those as well. So I'm going to hit OK. And take a look at my sample line group properties, which, OK, is the same thing. And then, oh, Civil 3D seems to be frozen. We can right click on here and sample more sources as well. So say we forgot to add one in. If we go to sample line properties, I believe, sample line data, and actually I don't think you can add any additional ones in if you hit escape after the command, so you have to go and create more sample lines. And I don't think we can do the same command here. So we'll have to reopen the sample line dialog box. So sections, create sample lines, hit enter on the highway, and then we can come in here and say we needed to add a sample line in right here, and we'll do it manually. We'll click to select the alignment and the left swath width and the right swath width, and it'll place another sample line in. And we can do that really wherever we need. And so that should also add it in under this sample line list here. So that was so there's 160 and 161. That was a quick run through of this creating sample lines on our road design.